Flights are pricey, planning feels chaotic, and that trip that keeps getting pushed because you're too busy or travel's too expensive. Welcome to Points, Cards, and Travel. I'm Ross, the founder of Itinerary Boss. I've made the mistakes of doing this for 10 plus years so you don't have to. Each week, you'll get practical tools, point strategies, and expert guests with real use cases so you can travel better for way less using points and miles. Quick thing before we bring on our guests, if you're new here, go ahead and grab my free 5 step roadmap to your next free 5 star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there, which you can find in the show notes. Now, let's bring on our guest and get into it.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks so much again for tuning into Cards and Travel. I'm your host, Ross Alcorn. Today, I have Kyle Potter on. He is from the Thrifty Traveler. What's up, Kyle? How you doing today?
Hey man, thanks for having me. Excited to talk travel and points.
Yeah, man. As always, it's gonna be a good time. For those of our listeners who aren't aware, most probably are, but for those that aren't, what is Thrifty Traveler and what you guys do?
Oh man, we do a lot. We do everything from traveling the or well, we do a lot of traveling. We do a lot from covering the latest news in travel and the points world because everything is constantly changing. We do a podcast, plenty of stuff on social media, but really our bread and butter is our Thrifty Traveler premium service. It's just a flight deal alert service. So you pay us, you tell us what kind of deals you want, whether that's, everything from the cheapest basic economy domestic deals to only lie flat business class flying overseas. And then we send you the best of everything that we find every single day. So, our members get anywhere from, one to four, sometimes even more points deals, cheap fares, the occasional mistake fare in their inbox. And then just within the last year and a half or so, we branched out and added an optional hotel alert add-on package. So for people who don't just want to fly on points, but especially want to book, the top luxury properties, brand new properties in Hilton or Hyatt's portfolio, whatever, we send a couple of those each week to people who add on that optional service. And it's been a big hit so far.
Yeah, I mean, I know for my audience, we're busy, we're business owners, right? We want a simplified version. And for me personally, like trying to find the flight deal, a lot of the times that's the hardest part. So being able to have someone else and have people who have done it for a long time do it and help get those just wins is huge. And like you said, it's not just the flights, hotels too. It's like first it's the flights, and you're like, oh, then I got to go book the hotel and find which one, right? There's so much to it. So I think it's awesome that you guys have launched that, and I'm not surprised that it's been a big hit.
Yeah, I think by and large, there's just such a hunger for, I don't want to call it the easy button because it's not. You still have to earn the points. You still got to figure out how to maximize your spend. But increasingly, the hardest part of this entire equation is actually finding the things that you can book. That goes for cheaper flights. The cost of flights just only seems to go up and up, but especially on the award side, where award availability has gotten, generally speaking, much harder to find. It's more dynamic. It's changing constantly. Both the US and foreign airline programs are getting much stingier with actually allowing you to book those business class seats that many people want with their points. And that's just not a piece of this that a lot of people talk about, let alone have, systems and programs designed in place to help you do. So to get all of that information into people's inboxes, it feels like we hope that we're just solving a massive problem for people where, maybe you're going to get four emails a day, or maybe you'll get four in a week. Maybe one of those you don't care about, but the next three, maybe they tickle your fancy, or at the worst, they help you see what the new opportunity is about. Oh, I didn't realize that I could book, these round trip flights to the Caribbean for 15,000 miles round trip instead of paying 40,000 miles round trip with, American or United. It's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean that's you're hitting on a great point. The Caribbean side of stuff. We're in Charlotte, and like years ago, I discovered Charlotte to Turks, and that's that we go
Oh,
to the Caribbean all the time. And it's my wife flies a ton for work, so she racks American, but I sit at home and do whatever I'm doing on the mic and right, just trying to be a content creator. And I'm like, okay, I got my business spin and I'm using my transferable points to get there. And it's a sweet spot. So yeah, but people don't realize that. They think, oh, I got to pay 50,000 points to go to Disney or Orlando, which you can get, right? three good flight deals to the Caribbean round trip for that.
Oh, I'm so jealous of you being in Charlotte. Charlotte, Miami, Dallas, to a lesser extent, Houston. You know, up here in Minneapolis, we have so few nonstop flights down to the Caribbean, and the ones that we do have are longer and more expensive, and there's no competition. You guys don't know how good you have it down in the South.
Yeah, I mean, I have a question for you because a lot of people that I work with on the business owner side are all about, or just people in general are all about Delta. And since you're in Minneapolis, like, what is the one mistake that before we get into it, you want to leave people with, one mistake and one trick where you can use other points for a different airline to book Delta?
One mistake is just not giving in to the Stockholm syndrome of it all. It's so easy to become a Delta Hub captive here in Minneapolis, of all places. But, you know, the same is true in Seattle and Boston and New York, and especially Atlanta and Detroit. And that's great, you know, especially if your employer is footing the bill. But for those times when, you know, you're just trying to get a bargain, be it with cash or with points, airlines are, for the most part, the same. The experience flying on American is not significantly worse than Delta, or at the very least, it's not $200 worse or $700 worse. Some of the price differences we see for these Delta nonstops versus, you know, taking a quick stop or even hopping on a nonstop to Phoenix or Dallas with American, or Chicago or Newark with United instead of Delta. I mean, some of the price differences can get truly exorbitant. So especially when you're flying on your own time and your own dime, just being open to at least trying out another airline, even if it means you're not using your status or whatever you've racked up with that airline. I think it's just a really key piece of doing things a little bit differently and being more flexible. In terms of a hack to try to get past all of that, I mean, every single day, I have to fly Delta. I just do. Despite all the advice I just shared, I just have to, at in many cases anyway, right? And so when Delta is truly the only game in town, these days I'm looking at Delta Sky Miles rates because they can be okay. But the way to book these right now is using Air France, KLM, Flying Blue, and you know you can transfer them from all of the transferable currencies, often with a huge bonus. In very With very few exceptions, Flying Blue charges fewer, if not a fraction of what Delta itself charges. You know, for years the workaround was to use Virgin Atlantic Flying Club points instead. Just after all of the changes, mostly negative, that program has made, that's no longer the case. You're almost always going to get the best deal by redeeming Flying Blue instead for these Delta flights.
If this episode's helping you out, could you hit that follow or subscribe button and also leave a quick 5-star rating wherever you're listening?
Awesome. I appreciate you walking us through that. Yeah, I think a lot of people at first don't even realize a lot went for people who are busy, who haven't really gotten to the points game. They're trying to figure out which card is right for them and then how do they maximize it. That's one of the biggest mistakes I hear from when talking to busy professionals or business owners is it's just Delta, right? There's no workaround. So once they realize, oh, wait, my points can be stretched further with whether I have these different cards and currencies and then transferring them, that's super helpful. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I have a lot of people out of Minneapolis and or Atlanta or the other Delta hubs, and it's yeah, I put everything on my Delta Amex, and they're not. There is a specific use case, right? If you are a high spending business owner, and you're wanting to get to that status quickly. But if you're every day, sometimes it's like there's definitely better strategies that you can put into play and help you get more value from your dollar and stretch it further.
Yeah, you know, it's all about opportunity costs, right? Let's say you have to spend a certain amount on that Delta Amex every year in order to get to that status you want. I mean, I think first you have to ask yourself, are you getting that amount of value back from that Delta status that you're earning? So if you're talking about trying to get a free upgrade every time you fly, that ship has sailed. That's not happening anymore. So then you need to kind of ask yourself, what can I do with this chunk of spending? Whether it's, you know, all $60,000 a year you charge to that, you know, Delta Business Reserve card, or it's just a chunk of that. How could you spend that on a different credit card in order to earn transferable points? And then you get the best of both worlds. You get at least some status with Delta, some of those perks. But then you have your little kind of slush fund of points to play with and figure out, all right, what else can I do with this? And then maybe the year after that, you shift even more into a different credit card where you're just going to have more options. And in some cases, that's going to be flying Delta, and that's great. Maybe you transfer Amex membership rewards points to Delta because there's a great Delta Sky Miles flash sale. I mean, we always see round trip flights down to Mexico for 15,000 Sky Miles round trip, sometimes as low as 8,000 Sky Miles round trip. Like the deals can get that good, but they're often not that good. And, when Delta is charging 40,000 Sky Miles round trip for a simple domestic flight to Phoenix or Orlando, and you can book those exact same flights through Air France Flying Blue for half that or less, it really pays to have that extra pot of points that you can lean on and just kind of expand your horizons of what's possible to travel more for less. That's the name of the game.
100%. I love how we just went in on Delta and Orlando.
The path from Atlanta to Orlando is well worn.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, no, I love what you guys put out for on your sometimes on your Instagram. And if listeners, if you aren't following Thrifty Traveler, go give them a follow because when I want something that's simple and I can just have a swipe file or an update on, hey, here's an 8K deal or this or that, to specific destinations like you just mentioned, Mexico on Delta. Like I literally just saw that a few weeks ago where it said 15K from here. So it's if you want some of those deal alerts, definitely this is the type of resource that you need and makes your life a lot simpler. And there's experts in the background hunting those deals. So no, I appreciate you sharing that. Would love to just for people who spend a lot of time because I think the name of the game, like when people come into it, specifically for people who are super busy and business owners, is I don't want to have to learn all this. Like I don't have the time to search for these flights. When people start to then spend hours searching for flights to find the perfect deal, like why do you feel like that is the wrong approach?
Time is money, right? And this is candidly what we pay our team to do is to spend that time so that people don't have to. Not just to find the actual award availability that you can in fact book with your points, but to learn the nuances of, okay, there's this flight from Chicago to Zurich and it's flying Swiss Airlines. But you don't have Swiss miles, but there are four, maybe five, maybe even six different ways to book that flight from Chicago to Zurich in business class in Swiss Airlines using transferable points. So then every email that we send breaks down. Okay, if you have Chase points, you can transfer them to Air Canada Aeroplan or United Mileage Plus, or if you have Amex membership rewards, you can send them to Avianca Life Miles or Air Canada Aeroplan or Turkish Miles and Smiles. And you just go down the list of options. That's the stuff that we try to help thread the needle with people on and kind of lead them down that path. So it's both sides of that coin, which really is the full picture of trying to use your points. You need to find the award availability. And then you need to figure out the best way to actually redeem the points that you have for the fewest amount of points as possible. And so we're trying to kind of connect that into a single bridge and lead people to the best possible redemption that's going to work for them. I love this stuff. I love doing it myself, but I also book a lot of our deals because I don't have A, the time to do it, and I certainly B, don't have as much time as our team does to look at this stuff constantly and, get things in my inbox that I just never would have found on my own. That's what I pay them for.
100%. No, I think it's a great solution to a massive problem. I mean, I can say from DIYing this stuff for like 10 years, it's like it takes so much to learn. So being able to, who's the right transfer partner? Which cards go there? What's the best redemption? A lot of people are like, what the hell is a transfer bonus, right? Like, how do I time that? Like, there's so many, and that's even before all of the devaluations, the new programs, just everything that goes into it. So yeah, I think for people who want something, again, just going back to simple, it's and I can tell you from my experience, like we're trying to get award availability back from Japan next February, March, and it's like a year in advance. Like I'm clocking it I have alerts set up, right? We've timed out our bonuses, but that's from like very experienced. It's a lot. So it's shoot, I might just pay your team to do it for me, honestly. That's someone who runs a travel company. But it's like that, it is. It is a lot of stuff that you have to know. And if you're busy, it's like you said, just comes your inbox and it makes it simple.
Right. Yeah. And, that's not to say that, in your situation, let's say you are dead set, you need that flight back from Japan. We're going to look for that stuff every day. That's not going to guarantee that those things are going to come up. And I will say, I think every traveler, no matter what their goals are, would be wise to not just have one tool in their toolbox to try to not necessarily automate this stuff, but at least make it easier to make it easier to find the flights that are going to work. I don't think there is one and done tool out there, and that includes ours. I think, I personally, I book flights based on the deals that we find and send our members. But I also use tools like Seats.aero and Points and Award Tool because, especially in those, let's just say more specific circumstances where you've got half of a trip booked and then you need another thing back. And, sometimes there's not going to be enough award space on that flight back from Japan to the United States for us to merit sending a deal to, thousands of members. But maybe there's going to be one date that will, in fact, work for your travels. That's where, that Seats.aero search, that Points search, that can be really invaluable to have another tool in your tool belt. So you don't have all your eggs in one basket, but you've still got a couple of different options to help you unearth something that's going to work and make your trip possible.
Yeah, no, 100%. You bring up a great point. I mean, it's like you said, you can have a newsletter, you can have different tools. And also with those tools, you can set up alerts, which that's what we did for partners. And yeah, we just saw for our specific scenario, we got Japan business class over there direct from Chicago. And I'm like, we got the points. We got to use it, right? Like this is something that we want to do. And it's like, we'll figure out the way back. And it may not even be flying back directly from Tokyo. It could be going to Singapore and then taking that back. But I think that's where a lot of people that listen to this are on that beginner stage. So it's also thinking through it isn't always going to be, the most frequent thing. I want to go to Italy in dead set July and I want to take my family of five and it's March 10th and we want to get five first class seats and we have 500,000 points. I hate to break it to you, that's not happening. Even probably next year, it might not happen. So you got the name of the game too is flexibility. And like Kyle mentioned, having the different tools in your tool belt or having a simple solution really does help you get a better chance to be able to do that and accomplish it.
We hear the two most common things that we hear from our members of our service are,
We wanted to thank you for listening in and mention if you want help applying this to your own spending and trip planning strategy, that's exactly what the Reward Strategy Lab community is for. You can find details if you want to join within our show notes. Now, back on with the show.
one is that the deals themselves are great, but the biggest thing for them is just the education of, oh, I didn't realize I could use these points to book this flight. And I didn't actually use it to book the alert that you sent me, but I'm using it for a different trip because it just unearthed something for me that's going to work for my personal situation. I think the second and maybe biggest thing that we hear is that this changed the way I travel. So people were signed up for us or signed up with many different tools, thinking I do need five business class seats to Italy in July. That's what I'm waiting for. You better send it to me. And in the meantime, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. But in the meantime, they get 10 or 20 different deals of maybe things that are close enough to make it work. Maybe it's flying into Amsterdam for five in July instead of straight to Rome. Or maybe it's something completely different. Maybe it's flying to Japan, which was supposed to be more of a 2027 thing in their minds. But this popped up and it's like, well, that sounds pretty good. Maybe we'll try Italy a different time. So what we hear from people is that it changes the way they travel and that over time, they start their travel planning process less with, I need to go to this destination at this time, and more with, I'm going to follow a good deal just wherever that takes me, knowing that as long as I have the points, I'm going to be able to get to all of the places that I want. But as a result of this, there's going to be a lot more cool places on my list and really great ways to get there.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said it perfectly. And a lot of times people don't realize some of the places that might have good award availability might be a little bit less crowded than the place that you can't find it to go to. And for people who haven't been over to Europe, or if you're going to those bigger hubs, a lot of the times you're gonna be able, the flights to from, let's say, Amsterdam to Italy are gonna be, I mean, you might be able to even pay those in cash because there's, once you get over to Europe, if you haven't been, it's just so cheap where you can find 30, 40, $50 deals. I mean, you might be flying on our favorite Ryanair and EasyJet where they make you pay for air, but
Hey, I'm not going to tolerate any Ryanair slander. Best airline in the world.
no, I know, I'm joking. No, it's but yeah, that's when I went to Europe my first time, I was like, this is great. This is so cheap. What is wrong with America? Why can't we get cheap flights? It runs me $300 to go an hour in the air when it can go 2 hours to other places. But yeah, it's just thinking through those things. And once you do it once again, it also takes you to cool places like we talked about that might not be as crowded and might be hidden gems that will get crowded in the coming years. So yeah, it's just that ultimate flexibility. And you get your vacation starts when you leave the front door versus, right, you're sitting in the middle in economy in the back of the bus on a 10-hour flight.
Right? Yeah. No, that's maybe the biggest thing about all of this is that 10-hour transatlantic, let alone trans-Pacific flight is something that most normal human beings absolutely dread. And, if you're able to do it, A, without paying much out of pocket or significantly less, and B, use the points that you've had from, spending on your business, spending whatever you're doing in order to earn all these points. If you're able to do that in a lie flat business class seat where you're getting a solid, maybe 4 hours of sleep, maybe, 10 on those long flights over to Southeast Asia or wherever, that makes the entire experience a lot better. And as you said, it really starts from the moment you leave your house because you're excited for that amazing trip that you're going to take rather than dreading the next 10 plus hours you're going to sit in seat 36B.
Yes. And disclaimer for people who are listening, if you're just getting into this and you're gonna fly in your first business class seat, just know that your spouse and your family will be spoiled and they're gonna ask you, why are we not flying in business the next time? So if they do ask that, when you do ask them to open a new credit card, just ask them, do they want to fly in economy or do they want to fly in business? And then it takes the whole hesitation of opening a new card and being player two out of the equation.
There is no more unbothered person than the spouse or partner or family member of somebody who racked up all the points and put them in business class. You gotta appreciate how good you have it and help out a little bit when you can.
100%. Yeah, my wife last year, I think I went on a podcast and someone asked like, how does she feel about all this, like doing a business, being, player two and this and that. And like, I mean, she enjoyed it. And then she asked me every time I book a flight, are we flying in business? Or are we flying in economy? Can we take a positioning flight to fly in business versus that? So yeah, but it's great because it allows, everyone to enjoy, the flight. Cool, man. What about an example? I mean, you're talking about some really good deals, but is there one that made kind of an impact that your team found for someone?
Yeah, I'll start very selfishly. Cathay Pacific Business Class has gotten really, really hard to book with miles, unless if you have their own miles. And this is a trend that we've seen really started to accelerate within the last year or so, is that airlines are getting a lot stingier with letting partner carriers book their fanciest business and first class seats. If you want to fly Singapore Airlines, if you want to fly Qatar Airways Q Suites in business class, you really need to use that program's own miles. And we're not seeing those deals pop up for American Airlines anymore, or other one world carriers that normally can book those Cathay Pacific or Qatar Airways flights. But a handful of months ago, Cathay Pacific announced that it was going to restart nonstop flights from Seattle to Hong Kong, and that ushered in this wave of award space where, for the first time in I think 4 years, we saw a significant amount of award space bookable through American Advantage miles for 70,000 miles per person. And my wife and I have been talking about going back to Southeast Asia for the first time in 8 years. And it was like a sign from the gods. When the flight deal gods speak, you listen, you book the flight, you ask questions later. And so we booked that flight, and I think less than 2 hours later, it was all either booked or American Airlines and Cathay Pacific decided to pull that award space. But so glad, and we were able to finish up that trip a couple months later with a return flight in Cathay Pacific to take a trip to Hong Kong and Thailand in April. So selfishly, that's the kind of deal you got to jump on, right?
Yeah, 100%. Did you go, was that last April?
No, it's coming up. I'm
Oh,
itching to
okay,
get
sweet.
I'm itching to get out of Minnesota and the brutal winters here and make that one happen. So I'll report back once we actually take those flights.
Nice, man.
Uh, Another one that just happened this morning. Let's see, it was San Francisco and San Jose to Tahiti for $464 round trip. And that's because it was flying Delta with a quick connection down through LA versus, flying nonstop with United from San Francisco to Tahiti. I think those fares are typically at least 900, if not $1,200 round trip. So that's just, when you see stuff like that, you got to book now, you ask questions later, and regardless of what happens, you've got at least 24 hours to cancel that trip and get a full refund, not just a voucher, but get your money back if you can't make the pieces fit together.
Yeah, 100%. Is that for listeners, just to confirm, is that only on the cash price for the 24 hours, or is that also like for your Cathay Pacific example for you guys, would it have to be within 24 hours, or is there another window?
It applies for everything on the award ticket side as well, with a probably more important wrinkle that at least with all of the major U.S. airline programs, all of them, waive cancellation fees when you're booking with award tickets, especially for a business class redemption. But generally speaking, anything that's not the cheapest basic economy ticket, you can cancel at any time and just get your miles and any taxes and fees you paid back for free, even if you wait 364 days, if you booked 365 days in advance. So that's a great reason to keep, using the miles that you have in mind, whether it's just a great looking trip and you're not sure if you're going to make it work. Great instance where you might want to use miles. It's one of the things that I tend to do if I am unsure if it's the flight that I actually want to take, if I'm hoping for, that great business class redemption to get home. So for example, for that Hong Kong and Thailand trip, it took a while, and I was starting to worry that I wasn't going to find something that, my wife and I would really want to fly on the way home because the award space just wasn't cooperating. So I considered, and fortunately didn't even have to, but what I would have done is booked a Delta Sky Miles ticket from Taiwan back to the States and to our home in Minneapolis using Delta Sky Miles, because if something popped up in the next 3-4 months between, when I booked and the time when the trip actually took place, I would be able to book that separately and then just cancel my Delta Sky Miles ticket and get all those miles and taxes and fees back.
Okay. No, that's super helpful. Because I think a lot of times people, when they're getting into this, it's like, okay, once I transfer my points, once I pay for cash, like you said, it's like book the flight, ask questions later. If something comes up, like, what do I do if I've already sent these over? Like, am I stuck? Do points expire? Like, there's all it's level one of what's the right card, level two of, okay, who do these transfer to? Once you transfer, now what are all the intricacies that go into it? So yeah,
Yeah, there's so much to keep track of, and you know, you got to be willing to make mistakes at a certain point. As long as those mistakes aren't, thousands of dollars worth of mistakes. If you let a few thousand miles expire because you forgot about the expiration window or didn't even know that those miles in that program expire, I think everybody can live with that if they learn something from it. One of the beauties of U.S. airline programs is, that you do have that possibility to cancel pretty much any award ticket without fees, get your miles and whatever taxes and fees you paid back. But also, by and large, none of them have miles that expire, or at the very least have very, very easy ways of making sure that miles don't expire. So Delta Sky miles never expire. American Advantage miles don't expire as long as you hold one of their co-branded cards and still have it open. So that to me says that, for those situations where if you're not sure it's a trip you want to take, or if it's kind of a placeholder flight until you hopefully find something better that's going to make your trip even better, those are great programs to use for those kind of placeholder reservations.
Yeah, I appreciate you clarifying that. Yeah, for listeners, mistakes I've made in the states would be Qantas, just realizing that hey, you then if there's a change fee, a cancellation fee, they're gonna and these are small mistakes, but they're gonna hit you with a 5, 6,000 point, which isn't a lot, but just know that when you're going through. And then also just being when I first got into this years ago, I was like, oh, I'm gonna book this awesome Etihad deal from Charlotte to DC because it's 7,000 points versus 9,000 something else. And then just realizing like, why did I do that? So it's, we all make the mistakes. So if you're listening, there's do that, make the small ones and it's going to happen. And like you said, Kyle, you're going to learn something from it and take it with you and know next time I'm not going to do that.
Oh, you would need a 4-hour podcast for me
Yeah.
to list out all my mistakes. I'll spare your listeners that.
Yeah, and that those are two of many. So anything,
Right.
if you follow me on social media or listen to this podcast, you'll hear every single one that I say don't do, and that's because I've made it. So that's why I say don't do it. But no, man. What about just for business travelers, right? Are there tools that help like get upgrades? Do you guys do anything like that if they aren't spending more?
We haven't gotten into upgrades. I think in part because trying to figure out what especially US airlines are charging for upgrades has become like trying to hold water in your hands. It just changes constantly and these things move so quickly. It's so dynamic now. I think the the general advice that we've given people over the years, at least going back a few years, was if you want to be in that first class seat, just book the first class seat from the outset because waiting for a cheaper upgrade was not a winning strategy. And within the last, probably, I would say 2 or 3 years, especially domestically within the United States, and I would say to a far lesser but not zero case for longer haul international, the US airlines have been much better about offloading those first class seats and again to a lesser extent business class seats flying abroad, offloading those at, the last 4 days, 5 days, maybe 7 days, but also maybe 24 hours in advance. At offloading those at a cheaper fare to try to fill those seats at a cheap upgrade rather than just having them go out empty or, much to the chagrin to anybody who has worked their way to status, offloading them, to that free status list. So just as an example, I was flying down to Phoenix a couple of weeks ago on a cheap-ish economy fare, and I checked the upgrades, and every single time I looked, it was either $300 or $400, and then I checked in. And lo and behold, there was one first class seat still open and it was $91, despite the fact that just a few hours earlier I had checked and it was still 400. There's a lot of stories like that. They are anecdotal. I would still say if you really need that first class seat, you should probably just book it. But if you're willing to roll the dice, I do feel like your odds are better than ever for a cheaper upgrade, as long as you're willing to be vigilant and keep checking and leave things to the last minute if you're willing to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it takes a certain type of person to be able to do that. And sometimes it's yes, or sometimes it's like, I just don't have the time. I don't have I don't, my anxiety levels are already getting high when you're going to the airport with,
Oh, for sure. And you know what? If you want the certainty of getting into that first class seat 7 days beforehand and you like the first offer that you see, pay it. Because the reality is, it might be $400 worth of work to you to constantly check that reservation. And that's okay. Again, time is money.
yeah.
There are tools that you can use to kind of play the upgrade game a little bit smarter. I just don't really know that anybody has really nailed it quite yet.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah. I mean, as they come on and we will share more with listeners as they come more onto the scene and become just very good. What about just thinking through when someone has, like you talked about your Thailand trip. I talked about my Japan trip, other bigger trips where you have, these aspirational trips where you want to find the business class. Like, how do you think about planning ahead, whether it's with points, whether with flights, like just having all of that ready to go? Like, what's your thought on that and how do you strategize through it?
Yeah, I mean the bigger the trip, the more you have to plan ahead. And the bigger the trip, the more I think you have to be okay with the possibility that you're not going to get all of the pieces in place in one day. Especially if you have your heart set on, that great business class redemption, let alone, a Cathay Pacific first class seat, you're going to need to be a little bit patient in order to fit those pieces together. And I do really think that the more time you spend thinking and caring about this stuff, the more most people, at least most people whose brains are wired the way that mine is, come to see it as a puzzle and it's fun and it's enjoyable. And then the question becomes, okay, how do I make this puzzle a little bit easier to assemble? And then that's where I think I really come back to the point we talked about earlier, where you really do need a couple of tools in your tool belt. Maybe that's a newsletter like ours and a tool like Seats.arrow or Points, yeah, or Award Tool or any of the other dozen plus tools out there. Many of them are great. Many of them can help you out. I don't think any of them, again, including ours, is a silver bullet to especially pulling these big things together. I think you do really need a couple of things in your tool belt in order to do that. And then again, you're just always going to need patience for these bigger trips and going into it with the knowledge that you might book that first outbound flight, in April for a trip coming up in November. You might not be able to find something that's really going to work to get that, return flight home until maybe it's May, maybe it's August, maybe it's even after that. So then you start asking yourself, are you okay with letting things play out? And if not, you need to be able to book something that's going to make that trip possible. Again, with that Delta Sky Miles redemption example I use for getting home from Hong Kong and Taipei, get something in place so that you can make that trip happen, but buy yourself time to find something that's going to work, hopefully even better.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to think about it. And we went to Thailand last year and it was like, I knew, hey, we're going on these dates for our honeymoon. I know award availability opens up on this date. I have the points. We're making this happen. But coming home, it was hard to find. And we decided, hey, you know what? Like, there's no availability getting home. We're just gonna go. We did Bali on the back half. We're just gonna pay a little bit more because we got a ton of points. My wife's gonna take the longer haul. She's gonna get business. I'm gonna swap. Right. We're gonna sleep both, and then we're just gonna pay cash for the first seat in Economy Plus, where you get extra leg room. And like it was either don't get business or take it right and split it. And it ended up working out. But I think those are the type of things. And like, yeah, when we go to Japan, it's like don't see any award availability right now, but also we missed when Built and Capital One just had their transfer bonuses and everything going on. Like we just didn't have the points there to use it, and everyone's like, "Oh, here's the here's the bonus," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had these." But no, it's like knowing that I get see all the deals for ANA, for Virgin Atlantic, right, for Japan Airlines, and if when they do pop up, when you have the points, it's like then you just go and book. But like you said, it might be 6, it might be 3, it might be 14 days, it might be when we're over there, right? You just gotta have you gotta have the flexibility and know that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you used the word flexibility because that's maybe the one thing I haven't hammered enough. Flexibility is a spectrum. If you are completely inflexible, there's one exact flight from, Tokyo back to your home airport on January 14th, and that is what you want. You really need some tools in your tool belt to make that happen. But the more flexible you can be, maybe, you have a couple of days on either end where you would depart 2 days earlier or 3 days later. That's great. That gives you so many more options to jump on award space when something pops up. Maybe you're willing to push that back as late as February when you're out of the peak kind of snow and ski season travel that dominates the northern part of Japan and also, leads to award seats being gobbled up in and out of Tokyo. That's going to help too. maybe you're willing to, connect down to Seoul or, down to Taipei or Hong Kong. You start inching more on the other end of extreme flexibility. You don't need to be willing to travel to any place at any time at any price. That's not how flexible you need to be, but the more flexible you can be, kind of veering away from the absolute ideal, the better deal that you're going to get and the better experience that you're going to have.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. And for the listeners, Kyle and I were talking about this before. This is my favorite part of hosting a podcast. I get a free masterclass from experts in the field where I get to throw my use cases out, and he just lined up my game plan, which is great.
Well, I'm glad you didn't pay for this masterclass because I'd be asking for a refund.
No, man, I appreciate it. I guess, is there anything that people like trends? Because I know it's always changing. You talked about it a little bit on, right, American Airlines, Qatar. I know you talked about Cathay Pacific. There's Emirates. Are there any other just like trends, maybe for the more beginner in the US, and then those people who are just kind of getting into this game that they should be aware of, where they don't step in and go, well, I saw this person flew business class for 20,000 points and it was $1, and I've been getting hammered with Instagram ads ever since. Like, what, just to set expectations when they do get into this game?
Yeah, three come to mind. One, like I touched on before, I just want to hammer again, is that airlines are getting much stingier with releasing, the best of the best deals that you can book, book airline X through partner airline Y. So, you mentioned flying ANA business class using Virgin Atlantic miles. That is, at least as we're talking right now, pretty much impossible now. ANA just doesn't allow its partner airlines to book those seats much anymore, especially Virgin Atlantic. So maybe you need to look at booking through ANA Mileage Club itself, or maybe you need to, stomach the fact that you may need to book through Air Canada Aeroplan for more miles, or book through United Mileage Plus for significantly more miles. There are a lot of these changes in kind of the nuances of how airlines are handling award availability, because point two is that they are really hoarding a lot of these deals for their own members. ANA is, if you're going to be able to fly those cabins, you're gonna need to use ANA miles, unless if you get really lucky and you're extremely flexible to the point where you may want to travel on April 30th, but the only date where it's really possible is like November 14th. If you can be that flexible, good on you. You're going to have an amazing trip, but that's just not kind of the reality of how most of us plan travel. You need to be willing to pay more miles to book the cabins that you want in order to have that best experience, because yeah, like I said, Qatar Airways is just flat out not allowing anybody to book Qatar Q Suites business class using American Advantage miles or Alaska miles. There are a few exceptions, but they're so few and far between that they're just really not worth planning around. The same goes for Cathay Pacific. The same goes for Emirates first class. That had been the gold standard of everything in award travel. It dominated social media for so many years, to the point where Emirates now says that you cannot fly these cabins unless if you have status with us, which brings us to point number three, which is that airlines are getting a little bit savvier about what kind of deals they give out to people, to the point where if you want to get the best deal, you need to really engage with their program. So the two really core examples of this that we're seeing recently is Delta years ago added a benefit to its SkyMiles Amex cards called Takeoff 15, where you get a 15% discount when you're redeeming SkyMiles on any Delta operated flight. If you don't have a Delta SkyMiles card in your wallet, you're not going to see that discount reflected, which means to get the best deal, you really need to be an avid enough Delta flyer to justify having that credit card. And more recently, United kind of took that and put it on steroids, where they also introduced a discount for credit card holders. You get a bigger discount when redeeming United miles on United flights if you also have United status. And there's this whole subset of award availability that you just flat out will not see on any other airline unless if you have that United credit card or you have United status, or both. The craziest example of this is, we saw flights from Newark to San Francisco in United Polaris business class. So that's like a 5-hour flight. A lie flat seat would be great, right? A normal user would pay 80,000 miles for that. If you had a United credit card, it would be just 30,000 miles. So that's two tickets for the price, less than the price of one. It's almost three tickets for the price of one. These are the games that airlines are playing, which doesn't mean that, caring about this stuff is pointless. It's really not. You just need to kind of be up on these trends in order to get the best deal possible.
Yeah. No, great point. My dad just got into the points game finally. I think it took 10 years of me doing this and doing it full time for him to be like, damn, what am I missing out on? But the United side of stuff, he's like, oh, I had this United card that I had from years ago when I was a business traveler. He's like, I'm keeping it because of exactly what you just said. So no, it's a lot to keep up with. And like you said, like you guys have the experts there who go and hunt and find the deals and get you the best ones and always bring in a ton of value to social media. I can say from someone who's followed you guys for years and just everything that you guys bring to the table and have gone through a lot of the pain points of trying to find the deals and do it and DIY it. It's super valuable. So for our listeners, make sure you go give them a follow. Make sure you sign up for the newsletter. And Kyle, is there anywhere else you would suggest our audience find you guys or anything they can do?
Yeah, I mean, check out everything we do at thriftytraveler.com. Our deal service is called Thrifty Traveler Premium. If you want to sign up for that and start getting these deals in your inbox, the one with hotels is called Premium Plus. Otherwise, yeah, social media. Check us out in the podcast feed. We have a free newsletter that's really just designed not around specific deals, but more just about kind of keeping people up to speed on the news and the travel trends and points and miles shifts, like we've spent the last almost hour now talking about. That newsletter is called The Extra Mile. A lot of places to keep up to date.
Yeah, if you haven't realized, if you're listening still, it's a ton. And it is a lot to keep up with. And there's experts like Thrifty Traveler who help with that and Kyle. So make sure everyone, you go give them a follow. And Kyle, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been great. Like I
Yeah,
mentioned, it was a master class for me. I already know what I got to do for my Japan trip. Hopefully I help, help bring some value to the conversation for you. But again, really appreciate the time and you guys coming on.
yeah, of course. No, it's been a blast talking to you. I hope you get that Tokyo trip booked ASAP.
Yeah, we will. We got the Tokyo leg there. Now it's just coming back. But
All
appreciate
right.
it, man.
Yeah, of
Yep.
course.
He's Kyle Potter. I'm Ross Alcorn. We will see you all next week.
Really appreciate you tuning in today. Before you go, again, if you're new here, grab my free 5-step roadmap to your next free 5-star luxury vacation and the one card that gets you there in the show notes. The main takeaway from today is you don't need more time or money to travel better. You just need a simple plan and the right strategy in place. My final thought is travel is supposed to feel exciting, not overwhelming. Take one thing you learned today, apply it this week, and your next trip gets easier starting now. We'll see you next episode. Really appreciate you tuning in.